Welcome to SRG Insights, where we answer your questions about sales, sales training, and sales management. And today's question is...
Kumarasen Govender asks, what questions should I ask during the coaching process?
Well, I love that question about sales coaching and specific types of questions you could ask, because it really gets to the heart of what we would call the coaching mindset. And so I appreciate it, and I think it's really thinking about coaching in the right way. When we approach sales coaching, we like to talk about the 3 A's. And the 3 A's are simply, first, asking great questions. So the A is for asking great questions. I'm going to get into that in a little bit more detail. The second A is really about active listening. And active listening, I think, are really critical skills, whether it's for sales or sales management. And that's the idea of really leaning in, paying attention, and focusing on the speaker, not on what you're going to say next, and employing those active listening techniques to really understand the intent and the context and the meaning behind the words of the other speaker. So I think active listening is really critical to coaching as well. And the third A is for assuming the best intentions. And what we mean by this is we should go into a coaching conversation assuming that the participant wants to get better, wants to do a good job, and that we're there to help them get there. If we assume that they've screwed up or that they're lazy or they didn't mean to do what we asked, I think it really changes and makes it more of a negative connotation, as opposed to let's assume that they're trying to do well until they prove us otherwise. So we're going to, again, ask great questions, we're going to actively listen, and we're going to assume the best intentions as a way of setting up and creating that coaching mindset for the conversation. Next, specifically to the types of questions that you might want to ask in a coaching conversation, we think about them in really 3 categories. And the first is observation type questions. So let's say we just came out of a sales call. As a sales manager, I was observing one of my sales professionals in that call. And the first types of questions I might want to ask are just to get an understanding and have them participate in a conversation about how they think it went. So the observation, it might go, tell me about that sales call. How do you think it went? What do you think went well? What did you see? What did you hear? What was going on? And the purpose of this is we want to understand, were they observing the same types of things that we were? What did they take away? And were they really listening in and paying attention to the key concepts during that call with the customer? So that's an observation type of questions that we might want to ask. The second area, and I think these are some of the most important, are really around reflection. So we might ask, well, what did you like about that sales call? What went well for you? And what might you do differently? So we're getting them to reflect on the call. We might even ask in a specific situation, well, tell me what happened. What were you thinking when the customer got confused or when they brought up that objection? So we're getting them to really reflect on what's going on, what they were observing, and are they taking away and drawing some conclusions and thoughts about what they might do going forward? And the third type of question that we might want to ask is around the application. And this gets them thinking about, now that we've reflected on the sales call, we've thought about what went right, what we want to continue to do, and what we might want to do differently in the future. We want them to talk about and ask questions around how they're going to apply those concepts going forward. So for instance, we might ask questions like, well, what might you do to prepare differently in the future? What type of research might you want to do? Or how might you improve that skill before the next sales call? What could we do to practice that skill before we go in front of the client again? So again, we want them to think about how are they going to apply and follow up on those key skills so that they can actually continue to improve going forward and improve their conversations and their performance in front of the client. Really, what we think about in all of these questions is getting them to reflect on the sales call after, so that even as a sales manager, if we're not there, if we're not able to go out and visit with them or ride along in that sales call, they can hopefully think about these questions themselves after the call and maybe just take 5 or 10 minutes and really think through what happened, reflect on the sales call and their key takeaways and how they might improve going forward. In other words, getting them to think about coaching themselves and continuing to improve their skills, much like a professional athlete might reflect on their performance after a key game. So again, we want to ask great questions, we want to actively listen and assume the best intentions, and then we want to ask questions that get them thinking about the observation of the sales call, the reflection of of what was going on, and ultimately, how are they going to apply those key takeaways and concepts going forward? Thank you very much.